Hello, my name's Jack. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Zineopolis collection of art zines at the University of Portsmouth. I curate the collection and I set it up in 2007 as a way of trying to bring together all the disparate things that I was starting to collect. This was including comics, graphic novels, zines, publications, and pamphlets. I'm now going to talk through a little bit more about what I think an art zine actually is. Before I talk about art zines, let's take a moment to look at zines. This is what the ArtZine collection actually looks like, but I found a great definition of what a zine is from the Barnard Zine Library, which is a huge collection in America. They say a zine is a self-publication motivated by a desire for self-expression, not for profit. And I think that's quite key to zines, is that they're driven by the artist's need to communicate rather than for a need to actually sell. Art zines reflect the diversity of thought and talent that exists outside traditional publishing. Art zines are one of the few areas left where creative people can speak without censorship. This makes the world of zines exciting as well as challenging. Commercial art is changing rapidly, with over-reliance on clip art images, Pinterest, and images that exist simply to dress up yet another advert for another product. So what do visual people make and say when they're given a free hand? You'll find it here in Zineopolis amongst our art zines. The nature of production, often cheap and quick, means these zines reflect the thoughts and hopes of the day, quite literally. The emergence of zines means that, contrary to popular thought, young people and older ones have plenty to say about the world they find themselves in, and not as passively as one may expect. The culture of zines and art zines shows us that people still have opinions, and it also shows us that traditional conduits for sharing thoughts are probably not as accessible or democratic as we'd like. It's great to witness this self-publishing boom. Zines have become much more well-known worldwide, and there are many permanent collections located in galleries and libraries and distros where you can actually see them, buy them, or exchange them. Many of the larger collections would categorize zines into specific sections. Some of the subsections you'll see are perzines, LGBTQI zines, poetry zines, photography zines, women of colour zines, feminist zines, football zines, punk zines, political and pamphleteering, special interest zines. In fact, that's just to name a few. There are many, many categories. Specifically at Zineopolis, we're looking at art zines. These tend to include small press comics, including independent press graphic novels, fanzines, small run magazines, manifestos, social issue zines, and collaborative zines. There are some specific ingredients that will make an art zine, and I'm going to talk to you about that next. So what specifically is an art zine? The nature of zines mean that they tend to not define themselves, but I've listed 7 criteria that helps me when I'm buying zines for the collection. So number 1, the art zine should be a non-commercial publication that has a small circulation. Generally, these are under 1,000, but more commonly it's below 100, and quite often people will make less than 50. Number 2, many art zines are produced intending to sustain a regular edition, but in practice, few exceed 16 issues. Quite often they're made in 1s and 2s. Number 3, this includes self-published works on any theme, most commonly by illustrators, craftspeople, artists, designers, and photographers. Basically, visual communicators. And number 4, and I think this is crucial, they are not subject to outside editorial control or censorship. They will contain no advertisements. This, to me, is the only unbreakable guideline or rule. Number 5, art zines are commonly reproduced by a photocopier or home computer printers. Hardly any of them are produced by commercial printers. Costs are just too high. And number 6, they're sold in specialist shops or via the internet. Many are swapped or given away free at zine fairs, zine libraries, or events. Number 7, the visual content or images will be proportionally larger than the textual content. Some may in fact contain only images. And this means at Zineopolis we're open to collect zines in any language as long as they're visual. When I talk about visual communicators, I mean that they're made by people whose primary means of communication is visual rather than textual. It's not just about decoration, it's about communicating ideas and concepts visually through drawing, through illustration, through artwork. One area that's of particular interest at Zineopolis at the moment are social issues art zines. These include broad subjects, but some of these are including the environment, mental health, online security, climate change, animal welfare, political activism, social media, well-being, politics, community, among others. One specific research strand at the moment is Mad Zines, where we're looking at zines that are tackling subjects such as neurodiversity, trauma, anxiety, self-harm, PTSD, amongst other issues. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what I mean by social issues art zine. The first one is called For the Love of Pigs, and this was done by Chloe Dole in 2015 in Portsmouth. She'd done quite extensive research looking into the cruelty in high-intensity farming, especially pig farming in the UK. This is a harrowing read with illustrations and text talking about tail docking, teeth clipping, and actually once you've read the zine, it does change your opinion. The next example is A Foul Egg. This was created by Rebecca Lego Tronsko in 2012, Portsmouth. She looks at similar subject areas in terms of animal welfare, but her technique is different. She has created a narrative where you're following the battery chicken's life as it is processed through the plant. A very harrowing story with text and image. The positive point is it does end with an explanation of what egg codes mean when they're stamped on the actual shell. This empowers the shopper to know whether they're buying battery chicken eggs or free-range chicken eggs. This example from 2008 by Candice Cummings is called In a Tizzy. This is all about anxiety and panic attacks from a first-person perspective. The zine is printed on brown paper and seeks to take a humorous look at the kind of advice that Candice was given when she was suffering from these events. The whole zine is packaged in a brown paper bag to reflect the advice she was given to breathe into one. The zine, although humorous in tone, tackles some serious issues and is meant to be for sharing the information so that you know that you're not alone. This example is a Riso printed zine, and it was a collaborative collection between Hurst, Penrose, Groves, Russell and Povey, created in 2019, and it's called Onirus, and it's all about dreams and fantasies. This one specifically deals with human relationships and some of the trials and tribulations of getting to know and love another person. As the curator of Zineopolis, I also make my own serial art zine called Future Fantastic. I started this in 2006. I'm still making them, and I'm over issue number 21. These are based on everyday observations and drawings of just what's happening in the world around me, combining journalism with illustration. What's really fascinating to me now is when I look back at the series Future Fantastic, which is well over 10 years, it's interesting that it started as just a daily drawing, making satirical comments and humorous comments on what was happening in Britain around me. But looking back at this, it's now become a historical record of the changes that the country has been through, including quantitative easing, credit crunch, various royal weddings, and Brexit and beyond. And actually, that's the interesting thing about zines, something so light and quick that can capture a very essence of a moment. If you want to know more about zines and art zines, there are lots of books and other resources that are now available, from sort of academic texts to how-to books, and then zines about zines, as well as review sites. All of these are listed on the Zineopolis blog. The best place to find zines altogether are zine libraries and special collections. Sometimes they're public libraries or university libraries or even institutional collections. I've always found the curators of zine libraries are particularly happy to help and very knowledgeable about their own collection. Some will collect specific genres and others are much more broadly based. You sort of have to have a bit of a look. The listing of all of these is just a sample. There are many, many more than this, and I'll put all the links on the Zineopolis website. So that concludes my short talk on the Zineopolis ArtZine Collection. If you'd like to know more about zines or even send us one, all of our information can be found on the Zineopolis site, which is www.zineopolis.blogspot.com.